It's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. We're your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, code-breaking news, culture, and manic warfare. We'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. Today, we're going to talk about multiple interesting subjects. First, Wall Street continues to drop ads relating to the Bitcoin ETF. It's just interesting. The Dos Equis guy, another company dropped another one. Also, Michael Saylor is finally saying the quiet part out loud. He's making his rounds on legacy corporate media, and he's basically making the case like, look, like clearly, the Bitcoin strategy has worked. It has been vindicated. There's all these public companies that are sitting on mountains of cash, aka melting ice cubes. Which public company will follow suit, especially after they just changed the FASB rules, right? Making it very easy, making it easier for companies to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They could actually correctly reflect the losses or the gains where before they weren't able to do so. It really does look like all the stars are aligning in terms of for Bitcoin. And we also have a very special guest. We have Bitcoin Mechanic. Bitcoin Mechanic is part of Ocean, the new decentralized Bitcoin mining pool. So we have a lot of questions for him. It's going to be a great show overall. Very excited. And a quick reminder, guys, we are going to be taking a break next week. I am extremely burnt out. I have not taken a break in 3 years. So I am unplugging. I'm taking off my swan hat and I'm taking off my Simply hat for 10 days. And I'm going to go lay on a beach and it's going to be delicious. So I'm just letting you guys know beforehand. That's what we're going to be doing. Simply Bitcoin will be taking a break. Anyways, no more delay. I do want to bring up my legendary co-host. He is in a closet right now. How you doing, Opti?
I am doing good. It looks like my internet's not too bad, but it's still lagging. I don't know what's going on this morning, but we're back. We're here. Good to be here, guys. Hopefully my internet doesn't go completely haywire on you guys. I don't know what's going on, but anyways, let's get on the show today. Avoid me. Go to Mechanic. Wait, it's kind of working. Hey, what's up, guys?
I do want to bring up Mechanic. It seems like you are low on your seat. I do like the angle. It's interesting. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm going to adjust that webcam so that I'm looking better. Sorry, I'm a mess, guys. I've been up all night. You know what it's like coordinating this stuff? Because we just did a big change in how Ocean works yesterday.
Yeah, what a big fitting day for you to be on the show. I'm sure everyone in the chat's going to be super hyped, and maybe they'll drop some questions for you. I know you just told us you're like, Bitcoiners have so many questions for everything. Well, I'm sure you'll get some more today.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of being a transparent pool. The more info you give, the more info people want. And I think it's genuine excitement, right? Like, mining has been a black box forever. It's just, put this URL in, make an account here, and then sats. And there's just no sort of information about what happens in between the two processes. We're the first one to have that transparency in how it all works. And it's been fun. People have been really enjoying it.
Yeah,
a lot of fun back to mining.
It's really, really cool what you guys are doing. I had the privilege to be able to attend the reveal ceremony, the launch, and then I saw the christening of the champagne over the ASIC and all that good stuff. So it was very, very interesting. I love what you guys are doing. I have an Ocean blanket. They're limited edition.
Me too. I took one of those too.
I didn't think to take one. I wish I had.
It was
I've
cold.
got a shirt, obviously, but
I never. And Mechanic is going to send me a hoodie eventually. So, anyways,
get a PO box. I don't want to know your address, man.
There we go. Before we go on, what do you always say, Nico? Mechanic buried the lead. Mechanic, did you just say you're bringing fun back to Bitcoin? Oh my goodness,
that's impossible.
Fun back to Bitcoin mining, perhaps. Bitcoin itself will always be fun. There's never a dull day in Bitcoin itself.
Wizards in disbelief.
This is true. There is never a dull day in Bitcoin. All right, everybody, no more delay. Just jump straight into the show. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure. Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. All right, guys, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen right now, and it will take you directly to the Stampseed website. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the Stampseed website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 43,575 sats per dollar, 2,295 block height, 822,263 blocks to halving, 17,737 halving estimate April 19, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 5,005 Bitcoin, capacity value 218 million US dollars, realized monetary inflation 1.75%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin $853 billion with the B. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 6.27%. Anyways, there's been a couple of professionally made ads that have been dropping, preparing for the Bitcoin ETF. Also, if you take a look at the betting odds, it looks like bettors are heavily favoring the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF in 2024. So things might get interesting. But just a friendly reminder to everybody, spot Bitcoin ETF or ETF Bitcoin is captured Bitcoin, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Anyways, here's Michael Saylor reposting the Bitwise ad. I think they got the Dos Equis guys. If you guys have been around for a little bit, the Dos Equis guy was legendary. Essentially, he was the most interesting guy in the world, and he would, always have these scenes where he was with women and in these exotic locations. Looks like they got the same guy to talk about Bitcoin. This is the latest one. Let's check it out.
Thought you would like to know. Satoshi sends his regards. Look for Bitwise, my friends.
I mean, it's kind of funny. Okay. And then here's this other one by Hashdex. Let's check it out.
I'm coming in hot.
I mean, yeah, they're coming in hot, bro. That's what I gotta say. These commercials, they're spending a lot of money. They're buying the rights to popular music. They're getting these famous actors to promote these ETFs, to promote these products. Wall Street is obviously investing a lot of money into this. And it's a change in tune versus a couple years ago where it was really the crypto casinos that were spending all this money. And it was none of them were really good advertisements. These are the first couple advertisements that I look at these and I'm like, these are pretty clever. These are pretty interesting. Getting the most interesting guy in the world to talk about Satoshi. Could you have ever have imagined this moment 7 years ago, Mechanic? Look how far we've come.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a negative guy, right? It's not really. It's a weird, questionable way for it to go. It's kind of like for me when you get what's his name? Ich bin ein Berliner. That guy, John F. Kennedy. Or his son just sort of go, I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm like, this is kind of just surreal to me. It's very validating, but at the same time, it's weird. Don't you think it's weird?
It is super weird, man. It's super weird. A couple years ago, you would have thought we were still kind of in the shadows, and now there's a bit more mainstream acceptance, whether it's the commercials or these popular politicians saying, I will protect your right to self-custody. So yeah, it's fucking weird as shit, Bitcoin Mechanic.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the main thing is I like that Tone Vase coined that word, unconfiscatable. It is the primary attribute of Bitcoin. And then everyone's like, the ETF hype is just ignore the fact that it can now be confiscated, because everything else is great. Number go up, all that stuff. Like, this is the whole point, is that you can't confiscate someone's Bitcoin. You can't 6102 it. And then the first thing you do is go, what we want is an ETF. I want people to be able to confiscate my Bitcoin. Then the number will really go up. Like, the problem with Bitcoin is that it can't be confiscated. So let's make it confiscatable. Like, and then everything will be fixed. It's just so utterly backward, the fact that that would be the thing that makes us sort of enter a new bull market. But I mean, we were kind of due for a bull market anyway. So who knows what's going on with that. But I'm certainly never, ever not going to buy real Bitcoin. I'm only ever going to own real Bitcoin. I bought some like, you know how you get these like tax advantage things if you save in certain ways. Like you can buy, like, so I bought one of those things. Like I think that it was called QBTC. And like another way of doing it, I guess, would just be to buy MicroStrategy stock, like with your retirement stuff, you know. And I tried that for a while and was like feeling all cool and tax efficient. And I ended up just like, no, I don't want to do this. I just want to own more real Bitcoin. Like I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, dude. It's just interesting. I agree with you. It is a kind of like a bittersweet moment where, you know, this essentially this peddling of paper Bitcoin by Wall Street could be a major catalyst for the next bull market. But, you know, it and at the same time, I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, Elizabeth Warren and forces are trying to ban the right for Americans to take self-custody around the same time. I don't think that's a coincidence, right? So maybe it's the Bitcoin conspiracy theorist in me.
I don't know. I think if you had that attitude, you'd be right. Or you'd be in a good spot in a few years from now, even if you weren't entirely correct about it being coordinated. Like if you act like things are a conspiracy, even if they're not, sometimes that heuristic just makes you make good choices. And, you know, it's not something I'll knock.
I think it's totally, everything is a conspiracy mechanic. I think these demons are trying to take away our money.
I don't know, man. I think like it's a purity test. And like if you keep it simple and you buy Bitcoin and you stay humble and stack sats and, you know, not your keys, not your coins, I think we have these amazing mantras in the space. And if you observe them, you end up in an incredible spot in not a very long time. So like if you want to get fancy with it and start doing shitcoin flipping and all this stuff, these guys, 90% of the time, I'm sure these guys just end up with their reputation in the trash and no money either. Like it's really, like, good money exists. You have this asymmetric advantage. Get as much of the good money as you can while everyone else figures it out, and just relax. That's it. Like, don't let the pumpers and the nonsense people and the ETH scammers and the Solana scammers and all that. Just ignore it all. Like, I muted everything from my Twitter timeline years ago that was nonsense. So Craig Wright, gone. Ethereum, afuera. Right? Like, just gone. I don't want to know, like, all of the wrong ways to spell Ethereum, all of the wrong, like, hashtag BSV, hashtag BSV, CSW, Craig Wright. Like, I never want to hear about any of this crap. It's a waste of my time. Like, in 5 years, talk to me then, and I'll be, you know, in a really happy spot. I'll be playing with my family, whatever. Like, it's good money. You don't need to play these fiat games anymore. We have good money. Just save your time, stash it up in good money that can't be debased, and relax.
Absolutely. So we have good money, but Opti still does not have good internet.
Dude, don't blame me, bro. I don't know what's going on this morning. Anyways, before I move on,
at least the audio is clear. The audio,
at least the audio is clear. I want to give Mechanic one of these.
Now listen, that's called motherfucking broad.
It's so simple, guys. Just stack Bitcoin, hold it.
It's not hard.
Yeah, it's not hard. Like it's really, really simple. But anyways, to your point of the ads that we're seeing, you know, I can't wait till we see like a Bitcoin Super Bowl ad that's telling you guys like just take your Bitcoin into custody and not this like buy an ETF. But I think it just goes. And I was literally telling Nico this morning. We were kind of, you know, speculating like, all right, what's next year going to have in store for us? And I was just kind of laying it down. It's like, man, We're going to have a crazy amount of advertisements for Bitcoin, whether that's the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, whether that's, the most interesting man in the world. We're going to have the halving. We have the FASB rule changes at the end of the year. We're going to have institutional money come in. Like, I think this year is going to be absolutely crazy, and everyone and their mom will be talking about Bitcoin by the end of the year. And it's such a good time for you guys. You have that asymmetric knowledge and the opportunity of just stacking Bitcoin right now when no one knows what's going on. Everyone, I legitimately think that almost everyone has heard about Bitcoin. They just don't know the best way to deal with Bitcoin yet, and you guys do. So this is the opportunity for you guys to stack as much Bitcoin as possible, take it into custody, and like Mechanic is saying, just hold your Bitcoin in cold storage, relax, go outside, touch some grass, hang out with your friends and family, and watch the price go up, and then just continue to propagate the Bitcoin memes that ensure that people do not wreck themselves. Like, it's so simple. It really is so simple. Do not overcomplicate this.
It's so simple. Some people make it complicated. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Bitcoin 2024. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference on planet Earth, July 25th through the 27th in Nashville, Tennessee. It's not going to be in Miami this year. The year of the halving. You do want to get your tickets quickly before the prices go up. For a GA ticket, you can get it for $349. For if you want an industry pass, if you're trying to get a job in the industry, that gives you access to 3 days of the conference, including Industry Day. You can get it for $1,099. And for a VIP pass, you can get it for $4,999. That gives you access to the deep backstage VIP lounge. I got to meet Tulsi Gabbard backstage last year. It's pretty cool. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get yourself an even bigger discount to Bitcoin 2024. All right, everybody, let's hit the culture. We have a lot to talk about today with Bitcoin Mechanic. Let's check it out.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, guys, I do also want to give a shout out to the Pacific Bitcoin Festival in Los Angeles, California. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's going to be the biggest Bitcoin festival in the United States. Super awesome speakers last year, including Jimmy Son, Lynn Alden, Greg Foss, Alex Glassing, Corey Clipson, Preston Pish, and many, many more. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get a major discount to the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. Opti and I are going to be there, and we hope to see you guys there as well. Anyways, let's pivot the conversation. And let's talk about ocean. What's going on in the ocean?
What's going on? We're moving towards the future, which is decentralized block template construction. Yesterday, we rolled out a new design that says we're going to make a few templates and you have to pick which one you want. And already we have questions like, well, which one should I pick? And I'm like, well, you should know, because that's a miner's responsibility. It always was, and it's just been forgotten about. So it's exciting to watch people figure out, well, if I put this in the template, that sucks because it's a bunch of bare multi-sig spam. It's provably unspendable, and it makes life more difficult for people running nodes for the rest of eternity. Maybe I don't want to include that in blocks. And we've got visualizers for each of the different templates that we're building. And I think the plan today is for the templates that contain obvious spam is to color them all poop brown. I think Jason's working on that at the moment. I don't think it's live yet, but I see him in the Signal chat right now, just sort of showing the preview of it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be, beautiful blue transactions that are obviously real transactions, and the default is you're a real transaction, right? But if you're doing the stamp spam, the bare multi-sig stuff, and you want to look at the core template, you'll see all that poop brown stuff floating around in the ocean. It's not very pleasant. We're not, environmentalism is a valid movement despite the nutcases that took it over. And to that end, don't throw garbage in the ocean. I think we all agree that's a bad thing. So, we want a nice pure blue ocean. We don't want like old shampoo bottles floating around in there, right? So
I like that. I like the way that you framed that. So actually, let's kind of break it down. a little bit. Opti, why don't you read some of that tweet? Because it breaks down the 3 options that are available. And in honor of mechanics talking about a blue ocean, I am going to be wearing the ocean. What's it called? Blanket. There we go.
Throw blanket. All right, guys. So here we are. This is the announcement from Twitter.
Do I look good?
Got ocean. So good. We got ocean mining on Twitter.
How do I look?
You look great, mate. You look like the Mona Lisa.
All right, here's the tweet. I'll just go over some of this. Actually, I'll just read the tweet and then we'll let Mechanic break this down. So, a decentralized Bitcoin is a Bitcoin where miners decide what goes in blocks, not pools. Ocean's ultimate goal is to make this a reality, and today we take one step closer to our vision of decentralized block template construction. Available immediately, Ocean is offering multiple block template policies, giving miners control over what blocks they are mining. The 3 options are: 1, Ocean recommended, most real financial transactions and least spam; 2, Bitcoin Core with the ORDI Respecter spam filter; 3, unmodified Bitcoin Core, same as other pools with fewest financial transactions and most spam. Ocean will continue its 0% promotional pool fee for options 1 and 2, while there will be a competitive pool fee of 2% for option 3. Our fees are structured to incentivize miners to make choices that benefit the Bitcoin network in the long term. Suggestions for more templates, let us know at mining@ocean.xyz. Okay, we got the tweet here, Mechanic. Now, maybe break this down for the people in the back that don't understand exactly what is going on.
Right. So miners do a lot, right? They don't just hash. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with mining, but there's a whole bunch of parts to the process. And what has been considered a Bitcoin miner over the past, few years and getting worse is the hashing component of mining, which is, as I say, one part of it. It's the proof of work part, but it's not all of it. You still have to run a node, and you still have to connect to the network and download the blockchain and verify the whole thing. And then you got to get transactions and populate new blocks with them when you're trying to find them. And all of this is being done by mining pools, and then they just delegate the proof of work part out. What this means is, in practice, you have these 2 bottlenecks either side of the distributed hash rate. Decentralized hash rate's great, and Bitcoin does have pretty decentralized hash rate, but it doesn't have decentralized mining because you need to decentralize the other components of mining if you want that to be a thing. And so, like I say, you get these 2 bottlenecks. You get distribution here, big thick amount, and then on the way in, bottleneck, because who's making all the ASICs? And then on the way out, bottleneck. All freshly mined coins go through the same 11 or 12 hands. That's no good. So we're saying, miners, you've got to take on you've got to become miners again. You can't just be hashers. You have to do the rest of it. Like, you're supposed to care when blocks get found, and you're supposed to care what's in those blocks. This is your decision, and there's a lot of nuance that goes into it. And yes, some of it is ethical too. Like, if you want to care about Bitcoin in the long term, you need to care about what actually happens in the blockchain. And it's not necessarily the case that you want to stuff it with the highest paying fees. But regardless, we have a default core template, which is not always necessarily the highest paying fees, but it's what everyone is most comfortable with usually. It's kind of the network default. So we have that template naturally. We have the NOTS template, which has updated spam filters. There's been spam filters in Bitcoin forever. They haven't been working particularly well. They've needed to be updated since Taproot. NOTS updates it. As a result, our blocks contain less poop floating around. And this is pretty objective at this point. Like, some people are being a bit navel gazy and saying, oh, but what is spam anyway? And it's pretty obvious what spam is, right? Like, I know that it's subjective, but at the same time, if you ever go into your Gmail spam folder, you'll be like, yeah, I agree, this is nearly all spam. And it's not. It might be valuable to the sender. It might comply with the rules of the email SMTP protocol, but it's still spam, and you still don't want it. So there's collectively a reasonable understanding that Bitcoiners can come to. And I think the conversation is progressing a lot, because everyone's pretty hostile to this notion at the beginning. But of course, spam is a conceivable concept in a blockchain. And there's been a lot done to mitigate it beyond just having a fee market that says, oh, it's going to be expensive. There's more done than that. There are spam filters in Bitcoin. There always have been. It makes sense to have a conversation where we figure out how to make sure what ends up in blocks is genuine financial activity. And there's a pragmatic reason for this too. We're not ready to push everyone onto second layers and things like that. We don't even have covenants yet. Like Lightning is not there yet that we can say to El Salvadorans, yeah, okay, you can't open like you need to experiment with Lightning, right? And it's going to cost you $70 to open and close a channel. Like this is not realistic for 99% of the planet. So all they're going to do is just use custodial solutions, and that's not going to work, right? Like Bitcoin ultimately ends up in a place where not everyone has access to layer one anyway, but we're not there yet. Like, so we need to be careful on a practical level of what habits get entrenched. So, I mean, I'm sort of going all over the place here, but Ocean has sort of found itself unwittingly in this fight against spam because we were the ones constructing a template that didn't have spam in it, which was like kind of crazy for everyone to see. And most people's instinctive reaction was just to label it censorship, which makes no sense at all, because then by definition, anyone running a core node is censoring too. Like your op return limit is at 80 bytes, ours is at 42. Apparently what we're doing is censorship and what you're doing isn't. So there's never any coherence to that argument, and most people making it didn't even know about these settings within Bitcoin Core anyway. So it was just kind of people just being like, wait a minute, you guys have no idea how any of this works. But anyway, Ocean come along, and we had this default template that was a NOTS template that filtered spam more aggressively than Core. It got mischaracterized as censorship. It was a deeply ironic fight for us to be in, because the whole point of the Ocean project anyway is that we don't want to be in a position where we're telling miners, hey, you've got to mine this template. So anyway, we're past that stage now. Anyway, we have multiple templates on offer. They're logical. They're what people probably are going to want to use. As it said at the end of that tweet you just read there, if you have ideas for other ways to construct templates, shoot them over. We'll get some more hosted. And this is all in sort of as a stepping stone towards the final solution, which of course is miners making their own templates locally. And then you decentralize mining to a much greater extent, because you take the already distributed hash rate and you say, not only are we going to distribute hash rate, we're going to distribute block template construction. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing it materialize. And we took a big step towards it yesterday.
So and let's talk a little bit about that, like the consequence of it, right? Because Opti's laughing at me. So there's a big consequence. Can't take myself seriously in this. There is a big consequence to what you guys are doing versus how it was being done before. I didn't realize the significance of it until, the event that I attended, and I was like, this is a big deal. So can you explain how, mining pools operated before Ocean and how they operate now?
Right. So the way mining pools operated before was they were a miner. That's it, a solo miner. And they did all of the process of mining. And what they did in addition to being a solo miner is they rented hash rate, which is they would pay you to point your mining hardware at them and solve their blocks for them. But the point is, it was their blocks. It was not the miners' blocks. The miners do not know anything about this. Continues to be the case, by the way, for all the other pools. Miners pointing their mining hardware at a mining pool are just leasing out their hash rate to a solo miner, who then constructs blocks, doesn't tell anyone what's in them, stuffs them with crap or, out of band payments or whatever they want to do. And they just pay a market rate for the hash rate pointed at them. It's called FPPS. It basically says, if you point this much hash rate at us, we will send you this much money. Even if we don't find any blocks, there's nothing to do with it. We want your hash rate. And people, bizarrely in this model, usually the hasher pays a fee to the miner rather than the other way around. So the model doesn't make any sense, and it's probably going to die pretty soon because it's very difficult to maintain expected revenue, because there is no way to make expectations realistic in a Bitcoin that's sustained by transaction fees. There's no way to make estimates the way there used to be with Bitcoin being sustained by subsidy. Back in the day, you had 50 Bitcoins generated every 10 minutes, and that's all that miners got, because the transaction fee revenue was basically nothing. So you could make very accurate predictions with that. If you knew how much hash rate you had and you knew how much hash rate there was roughly on the total network, you could plug that into a calculator and say, all right, I will earn exactly this much Bitcoin every month. Well, not exactly, but give or take a very small margin. You could say this much hash rate will get me this much sats. But now it doesn't work that way because you have price prediction. Essentially, you need to know what the price of block space is going to be over the future. Like, who knows if there's going to be another spam wave where, another token mint or whatever they're doing in shitcoin land. Who knows? Sorry if that's bad language for this show, but
You're good.
So you don't know what the price of block space is going to be. So when you're preemptively saying, hey, hashers, point your mining equipment at our pool, we'll pay you this much. If you have some weird thing happen, like F2 pool gets a 19 Bitcoin transaction fee, but that someone fat fingered, or Ant pool gets an 83 Bitcoin transaction fee that someone fat fingered, like what happens there? Does the collective understanding of what rented hash rate is worth suddenly go up a bit? Do other pools have to cover that? Because that's what FPPS says. It says, okay, here's the average transaction fee revenue in all of the blocks getting found by all of the pools. Your hash rate should give you this much. So every 24 hours, we're going to pay you out this much. And it's just sort of a fantasy, because what if the pool that you're pointing your hash rate at didn't actually find any blocks? They still pay you anyway. They bankroll the whole thing. This you pay a price for that level of intermediary. Having someone that can, a massive giant solo mining entity that rents hash rate globally, the overhead of doing that ultimately comes out of the pocket of the miners that are using it. So when you disintermediate it, like we do, we're just saying, look, we're not paying you anything, okay? Bitcoin is. So all we're doing is saying all of these miners coming together don't want to solo mine. They want to distribute rewards among them, and they want to find more blocks more frequently. All we're going to do is negotiate that the reward is split correctly. Everything else we don't want to do. We don't want to be responsible for the block template construction. We don't want to take custody of funds, and we don't want to hide any of this. We don't want to stuff it with out-of-band transactions. We're not we're not economically at odds with our miners. We're on the same team. This is extremely bizarre that this has to sort of happen, but it's philosophically just opposed in so many different dimensions. So Ocean comes along and we're saying, all right, we are just a liaise. That's it. So all of you miners pointing yourselves towards us, here's the transparent data on what all of you are doing. We, for the first time, now have a verifiable reward split. So when a block is found, as many people as possible are paid out from that block. And the payout split is verifiable from all of the data going into the pool. That's all public. So there's no account creation. There's no KYC setup. There's no permission involved. It's not you making a private account with a hash rate renter, that's sort of become the standard. It's literally just be a Bitcoin miner again, but you want a pool because you don't want to wait years before you find a block. It's just that. It's pooled mining as it's supposed to be without the permission. That's why the name Ocean is there in the first place, right? Because it's analogous to needing permission to swim in a hotel swimming pool or something like that, versus the ocean, which is just open for everyone, and you just go ahead and do it, and no one's going to tell you can't run or dive or any of that stuff. It's free, it's open, and you shouldn't need to jump through a bunch of KYC hoops and require essentially a bank account to stash your sats in that aren't yours yet. You shouldn't need any of that stuff to mine Bitcoin. And to be honest, the regulators have somewhat got their arms around the entire mining industry already, and that needed to change pretty quick. So to me, it's a bit like, to wrap up this sort of stream of consciousness here, it's a bit like explaining fiat or Bitcoin to no coiners, because it's not that Bitcoin is just the easiest thing to grok necessarily, and the permissionlessness is necessarily just immediately obviously better. But people get kicked off the incumbent system. They have bank accounts randomly closed and PayPal accounts closed and stuff like that happens, and then they just have no other choice. So this is kind of where we're at with Ocean. We're saying, like, look, it's the default. Like, you don't need permission here. You can buy a miner and put 2 details into it and just earn Bitcoin. That's it. Like, you can't do that in any other way. You have to have permission on some level. And there are people that would mine with Ocean. I don't know who they are. I have no way of knowing who they are. If someone I don't like wants to mine with Ocean, I can't stop them. Like that's so much more preferable than the current model where it's just reminiscent of the old system. And it's the saddest thing about it is miners mining with the sort of incumbent system. Um, the worst thing about it is just that they just suddenly have a massive intermediary between them and the network, but that means they don't care about Bitcoin anymore. They just want to get paid for their hash. And the mask will come off the system when that turns to fiat payments rather than Bitcoin payments, which is where it's going. Like they want a guaranteed amount of money to pay for their electricity bill. The fact that they don't care about what goes in blocks or even whether blocks get found, they just want the pool to pay them based on the expected profitability of the hash rate they're pointing at them, says you can't call yourself a Bitcoin miner anymore. You're just rented hash rate, and that's pretty disempowering. And I think, but it also, for the reasons I explained around transaction fees being what sustains mining in the long run, it's also just not sustainable. So we're going to see how things materialize. Ocean is a slow burning project. It's going to be a while as things slowly ramp up and things become more realistic for miners. Like you do have a minimum threshold you need to be at hash rate wise. You need to find blocks regularly and frequently in order to be a viable product for most miners, and we're not there yet. But when we are, I think it's just the black hole that swallows everything up. You mine with Ocean because there's nowhere else to go, and everyone else keeps rug pulling. So yeah, that's roughly my take on it at the moment.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mechanic. I appreciate that. So a couple questions, right? I do want to focus on the regulatory hostility because that is a big theme. You see these attacks by Elizabeth Warren as of late. Her latest bill, the Anti-Money Laundering Act, she's got 20 senators signed up to it. Essentially, this is Pierre Richard's words, not mine. It would be an effective ban on Bitcoin mining in the United States. So clearly, the politicians that benefit from being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for are not fans of Bitcoin. So they don't like competition to their monopoly on money. So what's your take on the regulatory hostility? Is Ocean prone to potential regulatory hostility? And why are you guys still in the United States? Why aren't you guys registered in El Salvador or something like that? Is that something that you've thought about?
Yeah, it's definitely something we thought about. No one is a fool in the company. America is the land of the free, except for anything to do with money, in which case it's literally the worst country probably in the world for financial red tape. I mean, maybe it's just because it's in stark contrast to the freedom mentality a lot of Americans have that I would say that. But if you go to places like Dubai and stuff, you're just astounded by the fact that you could spend $2 million cash to buy something and it's normal, right? I'm not using that to remark on how rich everyone is. I'm just using it to remark on, like, if you bought a $2 million apartment in America with cash and it was just like a thing you did in an afternoon. Like, can you imagine doing something like that in America? Like, your door would get kicked in 5 minutes.
They would show up up at your house within 30 seconds. 100%.
Yeah, it's like there's just it's $600 is the new threshold, right? It was 10 grand for years, and now it's $600. Like, they just want to know what you're doing with your money. Everything requires permission, and the value of cash is not $1 million in a briefcase isn't what it was in the 70s. So just like the practical element of evading all this stuff, it's just not realistic, right? But I mean, yeah, we're incorporated in Wyoming. It's a regulatory sandbox there. It's pretty friendly to us, Bitcoin friendly. I don't personally live in the States. Definitely, like if living in the States became something that compromised, or operating the company out of the States became something that compromised the principles of the pool, I don't think we would remain there. I just don't want to sort of make definite statements here because it's sort of an invitation to potentially virtue signal a bit and say we will never give in to this, but like, who really cares about that? The proof is in what we actually do in those circumstances, and they're not here yet. So I'm not going to tempt fate by sort of saying we're in trouble, but we have been smart with it. We've set up the pool in such a way as we are a hash rate liaise. We are not a bank account. We are not a custodian that invites all that regulation in the first place. That's very important to do because custodianship is a very specific thing. You can be in control of someone else's money without being a custodian of it. And we're very careful to make sure we don't cross that line in a definitional sense. From a Bitcoiner's perspective, they're saying, hey, you take custody of tiny miners when they mine and you can't pay them yet because you haven't hit the payout threshold that Ocean has. You're taking custody of funds, and we're definitely not. That's not what custody is. We're definitely in control of smaller amounts until they hit thresholds. That's not the same thing as custody. And for some reason, every Bitcoin business that could operate this way doesn't do this. They all just immediately go, yeah, okay, we're a custodial wallet or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, now you have to do all of the regulation. Now you have to wallet of Satoshi yourself. Like, we're not going to fall for that. It's a mistake. It's something we've been blasted for before for trying to be tricky with our marketing or whatever. But it's not about our users. It's about how we have to operate and avoid the kind of regulation that people are going to enjoy us not having. And it's permissionless mining. We don't know who anyone is. We want to keep it that way. I don't want to change that in the slightest. No thanks. And there's a way you just have to structure things and be smart about it and go, we are not a money services business. We are not a custodian of anyone's funds. What we do is we coordinate hash rate and verify that block templates are constructed in a way that splits everything among the hash rate. We also earn a fee for doing this, but that's it. We're not inviting any regulation with that. If you're going to set yourself up the way everyone else has, the bigger pools and the way exchanges do and some of the wallets, then you're just basically you might as well just give up if you want to have any sort of resilience to the regulation system, the KYC AML matrix. You might as well just give up. Like, you have to set things up correctly from the start and say, no, we are resolutely not a custodian. We are not serving as a bank account for anyone. We are not, therefore, we do not need to KYC anyone. We do not need to do any sort of compliance with this, that, and the other. And, I guess I'll just leave it to people to read between the lines. Like, if they figure it out and they come along and they go, all right, Ocean, we figured out what it is you're doing, because they're usually pretty slow with this stuff. If they come knocking at the door, I don't like. I think people can figure out what we do in that circumstance. If we did something people didn't like, we'd have no way of hiding it because everything we construct is transparent. And I have to leave it at that. I'm afraid I can't sort of make any bigger pledges, but I think people should be pretty inspired and pretty confident in what we would do if the push came to the shove in that regard. Jurisdictionally, definitely. We've definitely looked at other countries, Switzerland, El Salvador, places that are obviously friendly to this stuff and have more respect for civil liberties as it comes to money.
Gotcha.
Love it. Wait, before we move on, Nico, I see you're getting ready to move on. Mechanic, just kind of addressing some of the controversy out there. What would you say to people saying that there's no room for ideological miners and the only thing that matters is the fees?
I'd say that claim is only equal to a Bitcoin developer's ability to write perfect code. Because if that is your perspective, there have never been any bugs. And that's just silly. Like,
hold on. Could you elaborate? What do you mean by that?
So you have to do things that are good for Bitcoin sometimes, even if it's not necessarily great for your bottom line. That's just because, or at least in the short term. I think, let me reframe it. I think there's two kinds of profitability, right? There's short term and there's long term. Doing things that are profitable in the short term is not necessarily profitable in the long term. If you're a miner and you've invested that heavily into the long term health of Bitcoin as an ecosystem, like you got a bunch of ASICs, you've bought millions of dollars worth, they're going to last for years. You're going to want to use them. If the chain becomes unusable because it's absolutely clogged with spam that's using it as a public spreadsheet rather than a financial network that it was designed to be, you're degrading what it's supposed to be doing. That is not a good thing for the long-term health of it. And it's overly simplistic to say, oh, the spam will be priced out eventually, or the spammers will run out of money. That's just ridiculous. Like, that's like saying there's going to be no casinos in 3 years because people that go gambling will have lost all their money by then. Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's always going to be scams, and they're always going to use the Bitcoin network because there's more credibility in it than using another blockchain. So a miner that cares about the long-term health of the network needs to understand where it is at the moment and say, okay, look, this is not helpful to Bitcoin. It's not conducive to the thing's long-term success, ignoring the fact that a bunch of design choices are being routed around. Like, you have an op return limit, you have a limit to the amount of arbitrary data, and it was debated for years how to handle arbitrary data, and we came to some pretty reasonable conclusions. And then people found out ways to route around those limits, and now the blocks are absolutely filled with absolute nonsense. And there's so many byproducts to this, right? Just practical considerations. Like, I made this point on Preston's podcast as well, Preston Peace. Like, it's really hard drawing a line between scam coins and Bitcoin, because 99% of the people on the planet, if they ask you what you're into, they're trying to, you just met them and they're curious about you, and you tell them you're a Bitcoiner, they don't know anything about Bitcoin, and they either got scammed or they know someone that got scammed on Bitcoin, but it's nothing to do with Bitcoin. It was another cryptocurrency that rug pulled them, and they just conflate the whole thing. Bitcoin equals crypto equals scams equals FTX. Like, they don't know the difference between any of this stuff. And that's quite an easy line to draw. There's Bitcoin and there's shitcoin. It's not the hardest line to draw. But then now you have scam coins as part of Bitcoin's ecosystem. You have these tokens being minted on Bitcoin. So you're going to have people in the future that are like, oh yeah, I didn't get into crypto. I bought this token on Bitcoin and got rug pulled. And I'm going to say, all right, this is a really hard problem to break down and explain, because you didn't buy anything to do with Bitcoin. You bought a system that stored some of its data. You bought into this sort of pyramid scheme that stashed some of its data in Bitcoin's blockchain. You got bamboozled into thinking that made the whole thing impregnable and reliable. And now Bitcoin is essentially the new FTX, right? It is the host for all these scam platforms, and that invites the worst kind of regulation, and no one's going to understand why that's unwarranted, because Bitcoin remains solid. If you own actual Bitcoin, the currency that sits on the Bitcoin network, it's solid. There's no Oracle problem. If you own an NFT that sits on the Bitcoin network, 99% of the people on this planet do not understand the difference. They think that the ownership you have of that NFT is as solid as the UTXO you have on the Bitcoin blockchain. This is going to be a practical problem for us when everyone gets rug pulled from all these scams. This is going to be horrible. This is the next bull market. We're going to have endless hype cycles that distort and ruin the mempool and stop this from being, organic adoption of a new monetary standard. Because if more and more people use the dollar, it doesn't damage the dollar network in some capacity. It just slowly expands, right? The rails to move dollars around aren't subject to pump and dumps in the same way. Like, Bitcoin's block space is a scarce resource, and it's now a victim to these hype cycles that come around and make people have to, they want to buy up block space suddenly because there's a new scam in town, and then they don't anymore. And we need this to organically fill up, right? Having pump and dumps within that dynamic is a real corruption of how things sort of play out. And I digress a little bit. There's several points I'm kind of making at once here. What was the initial thing you said that prompted me to do all this? Do remind me.
That there's no space for ideological mining and its fees.
Right.
Only fees matter.
Yeah, I drifted.
If they pay the fee, that's all that matters. It's really Bitcoin.
Yeah, like, look, okay, the best example of that is government comes along and pays you $1 million to literally just mine empty blocks. Classic 51% attack. If you're in a position to do it, you can do it. No one is going to see that as anything other than an attack, and a miner should reject that money because they care about Bitcoin's price tanking to the floor. All we're seeing is a lesser version of that. You've got scam coins, which is from venture capitalist funded nonsense, which is a result of the Cantillon effect. It's the money printer funneled through VCs to scam coiners to pay miners to push out regular transactions that actually belong in the blockchain and fill it up with spam instead. If they just said, leave the blocks empty and we'll pay you loads of money directly from the money printer, everyone would say, okay, that's ridiculous. You're attacking Bitcoin. Miners, you need to stop. Pull your socks up and stop making malicious blocks, all right? You need to actually include real transactions. They still pay, by the way. It's not like you're losing a ton of money doing this. You can't accept government money to mine empty blocks. That would be over the pale, right? But it's essentially the same thing. You're accepting government money with extra steps to mine spam instead of real transactions. This fills up blocks so they still look full. These transactions still fit within some kind of rule of the network, even if they violate the intention of all of the design principles we've made over the years. But it's the same thing. Miners are being paid money by malicious entities to ignore real transactions. And that's all objectively definable in this case. So where do you go from there? Miners, okay, if you really don't care about Bitcoin, you're attacking it, you're messing it up pretty badly. And ultimately, there's backlash when those things happen, and there deserves to be. And it's not like the alternative isn't lucrative. It's just that a rational miner has to have low time preference for the long-term health of the network, because they're probably well aware of how good Bitcoin is and can be. And, unless it's just fiat with extra steps, you need to care about the health of the network. I don't think I think people are kind of naive when they think short-term profit maximalism is the only reliable motive for anyone ever. I just think that's overly simplistic, and it's kind of projection of people with just no moral compass, and it makes me pretty sick, to be honest. I don't even think it's accurate. So the people that say stuff like that, I'm like, that's projection, bro. Like, actually, there's plenty of miners demonstrably that will mine on less profitable templates because they don't want to actively take part in an attack on the Bitcoin network. There's plenty of people demonstrably that will do that, because Ocean ran like that for a couple of weeks. We had half an exahash of people doing that stuff. Everyone was doing so voluntarily. That was not us with some secret hash rate. That was not people that were contractually obliged to do any of this stuff. This was just people that were like, I want to mine with Ocean because this is actually better for Bitcoin. At least there was some of their motivation, right? And we'll see how that pans out. Now that we offer the spammy templates too, we'll see how many people mine with that instead of knots. We'll see what happens, and the market will figure something out. But I genuinely think people do have moral compasses, and it's stupid to pretend they don't.
Thanks for that, Mechanic. Very, very interesting conversation. Really enjoying this. By the way, people could point their hash to the Ocean pool right now. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's still at 0%. Well, it's 0% if you mine a knots template. Oh, and also, when you're reading the tweet, you called it the Audi respector. It's the opposite. It's the
or disrespecter.
Yeah, right. We're not respecting ordinals with that template. We are disrespecting ordinals.
Gotcha.
So I think they need to rename that, to be honest. I think Luke probably wrote the patch, but the main guy championing it is unhosted Marsalis, who's like single-handedly fighting the spam wars. And it's growing. Like, it's a movement, it's growing. And I think, let me make that point, actually. Back in the day, I think we were all big blockers. Like around 2013, 2014, Bitcoin had this like looming anvil above its head, which was, we're going to hit the 1 megabyte cap. We need to make this bigger. And most people actually supported it. And then slowly we all came around to the idea of small blocks actually is the way. We need block space to be scarce in the future. And, the people that didn't agree forked off to Bitcoin Cash and all these other scam coin versions of Bitcoin. But it was a long and difficult conversation, and most people were on the other side of it from where they ended up. And I think that's what's going to happen with spam. Right now, everyone's like, valid transaction, you got to include it or it's censorship, like all this nonsense. And, I think over the next short while, people are slowly, I've seen the movement grow. I've seen people go, actually, I hadn't thought about that. Like, we do need to limit what goes into the blockchain to being a type of transaction. You can't have someone pay 10 grand in transaction fees to move 5 Satoshis because it represents movement in some external system, like an ordinal theoretical purchase or something like that. That breaks all of the assumptions of why people would do the things they do. Why would you spend tens of thousands of sats to move 5 sats? It doesn't make sense. If someone is doing that, some of the assumptions we've made about Bitcoin's game theory are just straight up wrong. And people are doing it because of these external systems that are essentially just something you should view as an attack. Like, we need to get smart as a community and figure out, this is what Bitcoin needs. It needs genuine economic activity, and we need to minimize anything else. It doesn't matter if the whole goal is to make sure Bitcoin's reason to be is not to make miners as rich as possible in the short term. That is not the function of Bitcoin. That's a byproduct of it, and it usually works out. But having 100% economic incentive alignment between people that run nodes, people that do transactions, people that mine, people that construct templates as a pool operator, assuming they're all 100% in alignment economically, is silly, because there are discrepancies in it. There are parts where miners are motivated in a way that the network itself isn't. You see that with soft fork upgrades. SegWit was a fight, right, between miners and node runners. Like, it wasn't, everyone is not magically in alignment all the time. And sometimes you have to figure out what's the healthy part of the ecosystem. And this is a sophisticated conversation to have and figure out. And just going, miners make money, it's fine, Bitcoin was perfect, like nothing needs to be changed. I'm saying that's just not how any of this has ever been. Like, you have to have complicated conversations sometimes, and you have to do things that might appear short-term economically irrational from certain perspectives. I mean, like, the conversation is developing, guys, and like, my thinking on this changes every 24 hours as I talk to other people and we start figuring out what Bitcoin is and how it works. It's very silly to assume this was all preordained. And my favorite quote goes back to Greg Maxwell saying, the best way to destroy Bitcoin is to assume its success is preordained and that there is nothing you need to do to maintain it and maintain its health and, work on it and continually improve things. If you just take a lapse attitude because you're used to dealing with idiots that throw nonsense complaints at you, like, oh, the government's going to make it illegal or something like that, silly arguments, you fight those all day and you think Bitcoin's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. That's how you end up in trouble, right? You need to actually be honest with yourself, not a scam coiner trying to pump a scam coin so they're telling you Bitcoin sucks, but you look at it and go, actually, there are some problems with Bitcoin. Let's be honest about it. Let's fix them. And let's have a genuine conversation about it. And let's try very hard to make sure it stays authentic. It's not people pumping scam coins trying to throw FUD at Bitcoin. It's not idiot Luddites who are 95 years old and can't figure out anything that isn't gold. Like, actually, there are some, misalignment on incentives within the various state parts of the ecosystem, the node runners, the exchanges, the miners, the pools. Sometimes they don't all fit. Sometimes we need to figure out, all right, that's got to give because this is more important than that, right?
Gotcha. Wow.
Love it. Well, hey, I'm a monetary maximalist, so Mechanic, I endorse what you guys are doing. I love it, bro.
Yeah, keep it up.
Appreciate it, man.
Huge fan of what these guys are doing over at Ocean. You can go to ocean.xyz. Point your hash rate there today. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Kaboom. They're the most trusted place to buy and sell and host mining equipment. You got to check out their racks, and the way that you do that is by checking the link in the video description. You can check out their inventory. It'll take you to their Telegram marketplace. You can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them. You could access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with Kaboom Racks. So check out Kaboom Racks today. Start your mining utopia. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. We got a lot to talk about. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, guys, before we continue the news segment, I do want to thank Mechanic for joining us on the show. Bitcoin Mechanic, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Sorry to cut it off early. I've got to run to a meeting right now. Really good show. I like what you guys are doing here.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mechanic. Thank you for coming on the show, and really, really enjoyed the conversation and discussion. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cool. See you soon, guys.
All right, everybody. So let's talk about the news. And before we do that, I do want to make it easy for you guys. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now, and it'll take you directly to the Foundation Devices website where you can get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So scan the QR code on your screen or check the link in the video description. Anyways, so let's talk about this because Michael Saylor is preemptively doing his victory lap. And I think things really change as soon as another public company follows Michael Saylor. Now, the incentive is there. It's incredibly obvious. I mean, he points it out, choose your fighter. You have Bitcoin, you have the S&P 500, you have the NASDAQ, you have gold, you have silver, you have bonds. And here on the bottom, it says performance since August 10, 2020, when MicroStrategy adopted its Bitcoin strategy, right? So clearly its Bitcoin strategy is 253%. Just buying the S&P 500 and index funds, it would have only netted you 40%. The NASDAQ would have only netted you 35%. Clearly, the Bitcoin strategy is winning, right? So what other public company is going to follow suit? I don't know. But that doesn't stop Michael Saylor from going on, the legacy financial media and saying the quiet part out loud. Here is about a 4-minute clip. Michael Saylor goes on an absolute tear. Let's check it out, and then we'll discuss it.
Joining us now, though, is Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy Executive Chairman and co-founder. Michael, it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Morgan.
I do want to start right there with the regulatory landscape. The fact that Coinbase is now filing a petition in federal appeals court requesting review of the decision by the SEC. Is this the type of situation that could impact Bitcoin or impact the type of work you're doing at MicroStrategy?
No, there's a lot of uncertainty around the rest of the crypto ecosystem, but the one certain element of the ecosystem is Bitcoin is universally acclaimed to be a global commodity or an asset without an issuer. So the one thing we can count on is Bitcoin goes forward in the year 2024, and a strategy built around Bitcoin is generally a pretty safe one for institutions.
New rules, speaking of regulations, recently announced by the Financial Accounting Standards Board, the FASB, that are going to require companies to account for cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin at fair value. Set to go into effect, these rules, in the next year or so, but companies can begin to apply them earlier than that. How is that going to affect MicroStrategy?
We welcome fair value accounting. It's going to create much more transparency and clarity in P&Ls and balance sheets for any companies that are holding Bitcoin. I think the real significance is that there are companies like Berkshire Hathaway and Apple Computer that have $100 billion plus in cash. And right now they have to invest it in treasuries and sovereign debt. And with this change in fair value accounting, you're going to have a commodity that's valued as fair value, and it becomes a legitimate treasury reserve asset for publicly traded companies. Yeah, and we've had that conversation before on the potential for more adoption, although I suspect Berkshire Hathaway is probably not going to be on that list of companies looking to adopt based on commentary there. I do want to get your thoughts, though, on Bitcoin and the rally we've seen just in the last 2 months or so, since early October, up something like 56%. What do you attribute that rally to? We're going through a digital transformation of everything. Apple represents a digital transformation of telephones and cameras, and Google's the transformation of books and libraries. Bitcoin represents a digital transformation of capital. 99.9% of the capital in the world is tied up in real estate and stocks and precious metals and bonds. And so we're 0.1% transformed. People, as they get educated on digital assets, are realizing that they ought to be allocating more and more of their capital to this digital asset. And so they're moving from 0.1 to 0.2%. And I think that's really driving the trend. I've said before, if Bitcoin's not going to zero, it's going to 1 million. The real question is it a legitimate asset? If it's a legitimate institutional asset, everybody is underallocated to it. So along those lines, how much is the possibility of a Bitcoin spot ETF contributing to this recent rally? Geopolitics, risk-on rally that we've seen more broadly across markets amid the Fed pivot, and also next year's halving. Are all of these factors that are contributing? They're all factors. Education makes a difference. Institutional adoption makes a difference. The spot ETF news is good news. Loosening of monetary policy is good news. Inflation anywhere in the world drives Bitcoin adoption. And of course, the halving is going to cut the available supply of Bitcoins for sale in half from the miners. And so we've got a confluence of very bullish milestones over the next 6 months. And I think smart money is investing into that ahead of it. I do wonder what you think about the centralization of mining, though, and whether you're concerned, since so much of the crypto community does seem to be flagging it right now. People focus upon mining pools, but the actual mining is taking place in Bhutan and in Argentina and South America and Texas and Europe and Iceland and Africa, everywhere in the world. And so the miners themselves are very decentralized. They'll remain decentralized because they're chasing after power that's effectively marginally free. And the pools, they will accumulate hash rate from time to time, but they don't really have the power. The power is sitting next to a geothermal or a hydroelectric project somewhere in the world. Yeah, Argentina is going to be one to watch, especially with Milei in power now and devaluing the peso amid rampant inflation. A lot of expectation that we could see some more Bitcoin adoption there. Michael Saylor, thanks so much for joining us, the co-founder and executive chairman of MicroStrategy. Thanks for having.
So I mean, so many. So I mean, like I don't know if you noticed, Opti, but they brought up the centralization of miners. That was one of the questions that.
Wait, is Bloomberg learning?
I know. Is Bloomberg based? Like, what's going on? They rebranded and stuff, dude. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, I do want to go through the rest of this, and just pull up the Bitcoin treasuries, right? So currently, of course, MicroStrategy is leading the pack. Michael Saylor continues to just stack all the corn. You have Marathon Digital Holdings, you have Tesla, you have Coinbase. I love the lettuce hands. That's a good little detail. You have Hut 8, you have Block, you have Riot, you have Galaxy Digital Holdings, you have Bitcoin Group SE, you have Hive. So I mean, but it looks like it's really miners, essentially, like big miners. They're the ones that are holding the corn. So I mean, who is going to be the next to follow suit? The gap here is just absolutely ridiculous. Like MicroStrategy, 174,000 Bitcoin. The closest Marathon Digital Holdings with 13,000. That's a big gap, right? After that, you have Tesla, which is still kind of a big deal. Like the fact that Tesla's holding Bitcoin, as much as people hate Elon and they trash on Elon, that's still pretty good, right? Because it's a non-related kind of Bitcoin company, and they're just holding it because they think it's a better alternative to fiat. And here's more of the data. We pull up this website for you guys all the time. It's called Price in Bitcoin 21. And it goes by the time. So if you've been saving in Bitcoin, the dollar has gotten 91% cheaper over the 5-year time scale. Oil has gotten 86% cheaper. Gold has gotten 84% cheaper. The S&P 500 has gotten 82% cheaper. And a house, even though housing prices have doubled since all the fiat money printing, housing has gotten 78% cheaper. If you round up, 79% cheaper. So, I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding. I think Michael Saylor has demonstrated that on a public company level, on a nation state level. You have Nayib Bukele, who's been vindicated ever since the price of Bitcoin has gone above 40K. So I mean, I don't know about you, Opti, but I'm feeling good, bro. I'm feeling good. This is good stuff. I think Saylor is winning, and I think it's just a matter of time before another public company follows in his footsteps. Which will be the one? That's the big question. Which will be the one? But that will definitely break the internet. Nico, wait. Pull up Andres's comment. Nico is not that cold in Miami. Stop being a baby. Dude, you missed it. You missed it, bro. I was
show the ocean logo on there.
I was in character before, We
had Mechanic on. He showed
Mechanic on. Mechanic was going nuts, but I'll pull up the hood again. All right, Opti, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for a minute that I think, the Bitcoin spot Bitcoin ETF, of course, that's been like all the rage and that's all the news going on. And that's like all the hype right now. Are you ready to hold? Always have been. That the spot Bitcoin ETF is all the rage right now because Wall Street is itching to get some exposure to Bitcoin, and of course that will push number to go up. Of course, we are not big advocates of the spot Bitcoin ETF. We want you guys to hold Bitcoin directly. So that's been all the rage. But as Saylor has shown and will show moving into 2024, and as we're going to see at the very end of the year with this new FASB accounting rule change, I think one of the big important things that we're going to see is corporations adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. And everyone has the same problem right now. There's nothing to hold besides Bitcoin. Yes, there's real estate, of course, land will always be something to hold. Right now, it's kind of become one of the investment vehicles for people. And then treasuries around the world, everyone's dropping U.S. treasuries. No one wants U.S. debt anymore. And then if they're holding billions of dollars of fiat cash on the sidelines, they're all losing value right now. And so everyone has melting ice cube. Everyone has the same problem right now. And I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now that Bitcoin is so much bigger than any one corporation.
It's so much bigger.
Shut up. And we have corporations with bigger market caps than Bitcoin. Like, the maths isn't working out, guys. And we know that everyone and their mother is going to be looking at Bitcoin because, again, everyone has the same problem right now. And people want to ensure that their value increases over time. We all need a solid store of value, and that is what Bitcoin is. And so, as Saylor has shown, whether it's on a corporate level or Bukele on a nation state level, everyone is going to want to hold some Bitcoin. And now we're seeing that, look, Saylor is going to start making the rounds. Saylor is basically proving the corporate playbook for people out there. And yeah, right now he's the crazy one, but moving forward, especially after 2024, like if you're a CEO and you don't have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, like, you're not only doing your company a disservice, but your shareholders a disservice, and you will need to have some Bitcoin exposure. Again, guys, Bitcoin has a market cap less than some of the biggest corporations in the world. Bitcoin is bigger than any one company. It's bigger than any one nation. It's bigger than all of us. And it's still a tiny, tiny little drop in the bucket of all the capital going around the world. I really do believe that when we see another domino fall, it's going to really kick off the race. It's that gradually then suddenly meme. Like right now, this is the gradually. Saylor's kind of proven the point. People are still looking at Saylor like, man, why does he talk so fast on Bloomberg? Is this 2x? What's going on here? He's super crazy. And then in a year, what's the meme? You're crazy until you're right, and then you're a genius. So like we're seeing this happen.
I think Saylor's a genius.
He's literally a rocket scientist. Like and he gets Bitcoin. He has Bitcoin on his balance sheet. There's like the Apples of the world that are $1 trillion market caps. Like Bitcoin is way bigger than Apple, and Apple's the biggest company in the world. Like Bitcoin is bigger than everything. And then actually one of the things that I wanted to mention is you were showing the Bitcoin, Bitcoin rich list or treasury list or whatever.
No, I'll pull it up.
Man, can we acknowledge just how Coinbase is? Like they had such an early advantage here, and they're barely holding any Bitcoin. Like, God, man, they're really shooting themselves in the foot. And,
they could have just bought Bitcoin and their stock price would have been like so much higher today. It's so funny.
Goodness, it's crazy. And then like
stop re-renting the real. It's so easy. Just stay humble, Stacks.
It's so easy. But I mean, MicroStrategy stock has, I'm pretty sure if I'm remembering correctly, outperformed Bitcoin this year. Like if that isn't showing to the shareholders and the CEOs out there that Bitcoin is a viable strategy for them and that they have to look into Bitcoin, like I don't know what is. Like, hey, we had a whole conversation about does money make the world go around with mechanic and in the sense of miners. It's like everyone is looking at the same playing field and they're like, oh, wait, maybe these Bitcoiners are correct and maybe I need to own some Bitcoin. And now we're just going to constantly keep proving this to people. And once the next domino falls, I really do think it's going to kind of be how like the Bitcoin ETF news is like, BlackRock made their huge announcement and now we have 12 of them. And we're probably going to see them all get released and approved at the same time. I think we're going to see something similar. Like I'm wholly convinced that the CEOs out there running the biggest companies in the world, they're actively talking about this. Of course, they have to run a business. So like they can only probably do this in passing, but they're all looking at Bitcoin and MicroStrategies and Michael Saylor and being like, wow, is this going to help our company? Because everyone wants to make sure that their company keeps going. So who's next? I don't know. But hey, there's companies out there with a bigger market cap than Bitcoin altogether. Like it's going to happen. Now, who is it? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we saw what happened with Tesla. They did it. That kind of made a little bump in the market until they basically were trolling with Doge, and then we got a little dip. It just shows how early this whole Bitcoin thing is. It's like when one person can affect the market as much as like an Elon Musk can. You just know we're so early, guys, and you just need to stack sats, make sure you're taking it into custody, and then continue to spread the Bitcoin memes to your friends and family so they know what's going on. Or, you Uncle Jim them, and you're the genius of your family. It's like a Bob Marley quote, the forgotten stone becomes a cornerstone. It's like all us 80 IQ Bitcoiners will finally be looked at as geniuses in our families coming up soon. Not now, obviously, we're the crazy ones still, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Anyone worth their salt is looking looking at Bitcoin and they're trying to figure out ways to add Bitcoin. Saylor, you know, basically has proven the model as far as I'm concerned. Of course, this is still I think it's only been like a year or so, maybe 2 years since he's done this move. So it's still early in that game. And now moving forward, everyone is going to see this work out and be like, oh, I need to own some Bitcoin for my company as well. Bullish, absolutely awesome to be a part of Bitcoin this early. And it just goes to show, like, people really have a fundamental misunderstanding of where Bitcoin is going. And that's why I gave Mechanic and Ocean so much kudos, is because, look, it's still early and we cannot get complacent and think that Bitcoin has already won. There's still a lot of work to do. But, you know, as I always say, my original sin is I just stay absolutely stupidly bullish. So here we are. Just make sure you're stacking sats, guys. And as we say, man, just stack sats, take it in custody, go live your life, and watch the fireworks. It's so simple being a Bitcoiner. Don't complicate this stuff.
It's so simple. It's complicated. But really yeah, beautiful speech, Opti coming in with the hot fire. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before another public company.
Well, wait. Just for speculation, Nico, what's the company you think is going to be the first one? Obviously, you're going to be wrong.
Dude, it's going to be so random. But I think that once one falls, like, you're going to start to see this trickle, just because of market forces. And I think that, you know, Michael Saylor's obviously showing off, but of course he's showing off. He wants other companies to follow him. But it's going to become incredibly obvious that a Bitcoin, having a percentage of, you know, of your cash in Bitcoin is the way to go. And I think that once that cat goes out of the bag, like, you can't put it back in. Like, good luck governments, you know, pushing treasuries. Like, good luck, you know, convincing people to hold fiat. Like, you know, it's going to be obvious. It's going to be obvious in hindsight. It's obvious to us Bitcoiners, but it's hard to understand it. Like, it's hard to fully, like, picture that. Just like it was very difficult to picture that a country was going to make Bitcoin legal tender, even though we were talking about it. Like, game theory was like, I remember, like, it's so obvious this is going to happen on a nation state level. And then all of a sudden, you know, Bitcoin 2021 happened in the Bitcoin conference, and you have Nayib Bukele making his announcement. And it was still a shocker, because we could talk about it in theory, but once it happens in reality, it's still shocking. Like, you still can't believe it. You're like, no, there's no way. You know, and especially like our class, Opti, 16, 17, you know, Bitcoin was in the shadows still, right? Like, forget about countries, forget about public companies. Like, no. Like, it was not even close to that. So the fact that it's come all this way, you know, it's still shocking. But at the same time, just because it's shocking doesn't make it surprising. Anyways, I hope everyone's...
Wait, Nico, before we go, was this Saylor not staying humble? Are we going to see Saylor not
smiling? He was smiling on TV. He was like, yeah, like, I've never seen such a big smile on Saylor's face. Anyways, it's going to be great. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We are taking a vacation next week. We're taking a little bit of a break. So a much needed break, I might add. So we will not be doing the show next week. We're going to be kind of enjoying the year's end. We're going to be enjoying Christmas. I hope you guys enjoy the holidays as well. But we'll be back
a little bit, guys. Unplug just for a little bit.
Stronger than ever in January. Coming in hot for 2024. We have a lot of things planned. Anyways, we love you guys. This wouldn't be possible without you guys, your support. So shout out to our YouTube audience, our Rumble audience, our Twitter audience, our podcast audience. Really appreciate it. And like I said, smash the like button, share the video. Really, really helps, you know, with the content. And we love you all. We'll see you tomorrow for the last episode of Simply Bitcoin Live of 2023. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.